Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our webinar today. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Joy McFarland. I am the Product Marketing Manager for the US and Canada, and I'm really happy to welcome you to this webinar today, Teaching Standout Online, Approaches to Match Your Method of Instruction with Lewis Thompson. Lewis Thompson is a Senior Development Editor here at National Geographic Learning. He is based in Boston, Massachusetts, like myself. All of you writing about sunny and warm weather are making me jealous. It is cold and rainy today in Boston, but we're all inside, so it's okay. Lewis works directly with authors to develop content for our Standout series, which you obviously know well, and for some of our general education courses. So thank you, Lewis. I'm going to just tell you guys very quickly some housekeeping. I see you've all found the chat. I'm happy to see that. Feel free to ask anything you want in the chat, and I will try to get to as many questions as possible. We will also have a Q&A at the end of the webinar in about 45 minutes. So if you want to also ask your question at that point, you can. And without further ado, this is being recorded. You will receive a recording link in the follow-up email in a few days. So if you miss something, don't worry, you'll get another chance. So I am going to make sure that everyone is muted, and I am going to hand this over to you, Lewis. Thank you so much. If you want to unmute yourself and take it away.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to assume you can hear me. Joy, you might be able to confirm that you can hear me. Excellent. Okay. So, hi, everyone. Lewis Thompson here. I'm a senior editor at National Geographic Learning. I'm just going to bring up my screen here so we can get to that title slide. Okay, and you should all be able to see my screen. You know, as one of the level editors of Standout, it's a pleasure to be delivering this webinar for you all today. I'm coming to you live and direct from my home in Boston, Massachusetts, and it's a very different work environment from what we were all used to around 6 weeks ago. That's because for me, myself, I'm surrounded by my daughter's toys. It's actually become a very hazardous workplace. Actually, on the way into this room today, I stood on a Duplo brick, and if you don't know what Duplo is, it's kind of like Lego, just a little bigger. I won't tell you the words that came out of my mouth, but let's just say I'm thankful that we were not live. Okay, so on that note, if you haven't already introduced yourself and where you're joining from today, let me know in the chat box. And while you're doing that, I would like to take a quick poll that we are going to put up on the screen now. Are we able to see that? Okay, wonderful. Okay, I'm not seeing it on my screen, so I'm glad that you guys are able to see it. Okay, so we've all been working remotely for a few weeks now, and I want to know how online instruction is going for you. Are things going great? Are they going okay but could be better? Or is online instruction continuing to be a struggle for you? We'll leave that open for another moment. Okay,
Lewis,
and let's take a look at the results.
Everyone's voted for the most part, and we have 18.7% with it's going well, 57% with it's okay but could be better, and 23% with it's difficult and struggling.
All right, so I'm pleased to find out that some of you have settled into your new environment. But I see that some of you still think that things could be going a little better, or you're continuing to have difficulty. You know, hopefully some of what I have to share with you today will allow you to find your feet and help you feel more confident teaching Standout online. Okay, so we can close our poll, Joy, if it's still open. And let's talk about why we're all here today. Now, while what I have to share with you can be applied to almost every one of our titles, the focus of this webinar will be on teaching Standout online. Some of you may already be using Standout, and some of you might not. So before we dive into this session today, I want to share with you an overview of this series. Standout is a 6-level, standards-based ESL series for adult education. The series provides students with the foundations and tools needed to achieve success in life in the United States and to pursue successful pathways in the workplace and education. Now, the series is currently in its third edition, but our goal has remained the same since the first edition, and that's to help students learn how to learn and also enjoy the experience. For this reason, we have a significant focus on the use of critical thinking. If students are thinking critically, we believe that they are most likely also communicating authentically by sharing their ideas or their opinions. Now, we're not going to go into too much detail about the series itself and how it was conceptualized today, but that barely scratches the surface. So if you're interested in, if you're not using Standout and you're interested in doing so, I urge you to watch some of our archived webinars from the authors Rob Jenkins and Stacey Johnson. So today I'm going to go through some different approaches to teaching Standout online. First and foremost, there's no one best approach. You all have different methods of online instruction, so I'm going to share a variety that I hope may sync with your chosen method. Let me show you how we're going to do that. There we go. Our primary goal is to explore two approaches to teaching Standout online. With that, we're also going to look at how we can maximize student interaction and afford students the opportunities to develop their digital literacy skills. So let's start with the two approaches to online learning. Now, over the last few weeks, as you've been familiarizing yourselves with remote instruction, you've probably seen these two terms on an almost daily basis. For that reason, I'm going to have you guys define them. Let's start with a definition of synchronous learning. I'll give you 30 seconds to write your definition in the chat box. Go. Okay. Great. Okay. Wonderful. I don't think I need to give you guys the remainder of the time. So, synchronous learning is learning occurring in real time. An example of this in an online environment might be the use of a video conferencing platform. Now, with that definition in mind, a definition of asynchronous learning should be pretty easy. So this time, I want you to provide an example along with your definition. I'll give you another 30 seconds. Go. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Okay. Great. So asynchronous learning is learning that does not occur in real time. And I think as some of you have put in the chat there, an example of this might be pieces completed through a learning management system or a virtual learning environment. So I'm really happy to see that you all seem to have a pretty firm grip on how we define these two approaches to online learning. Now, you may be using one of these approaches exclusively, or you may be using a mixture of both synchronous and asynchronous. I'm going to share with you some ways that you can work with either, but it's important to point out that sometimes you get the best results when you mix them together. So let's take a look at synchronous online learning first. We said that this is learning that occurs in real time, and the example I gave you was a video conferencing platform. Now, if you're teaching online using a video conferencing platform currently, chances are you're using one of these: Zoom, Skype, or Google, which was previously Hangouts. It's now called Hangouts Meet. Here's some information about each of these popular platforms, and I'll just give you a moment to take a look through those different ones. Now, a lot of instructors have been favoring Zoom over other video conferencing platforms, and there's a reason for that. Though you have a time limit for group conversations, only the host actually needs an account, unlike Skype. And with Zoom, you also have an array of tools that allow you to manipulate what you're sharing on screen. And you and your participants can send private messages in the chat box. Now, these last two features I mentioned are not available through the other two video conferencing platforms, and it's a shame because they're really useful features for teaching online. Let me show you why those features are really important. I'm going to switch over to Zoom, and I am going to share my screen. Okay, and Joy, are you able to confirm that you are now seeing pages from Standout?
Yes, sir. A screen share within a screen share.
All right, wonderful. Yeah, Inception today. We're going to go deep. Hopefully, technology communicates. So now I'm using a PDF of the Standout 2 Students book, but this could just as easily be your ebook or your classroom presentation tool. So now that I'm sharing my screen, I can actually go up to the top here if it wants to communicate with me. There we go. And up here, I have an array of tools that I can choose from to annotate the screen, much in the same way as if I'm using the Standout Classroom Presentation tool. Now, I should point out that the features available on the CPT are more extensive, and they are specifically tailored to instruction. If you're not using if you're using the Classroom Presentation tool for Standout, you can just share the screen of your Classroom Presentation tool and use the tools you have available there. The Classroom Presentation tool isn't something I'm going to discuss the features of today, but if you do navigate to our webinar library, there are plenty of past webinars that show you how to use the different features of these resources. So going back to our ebook, let's use these tools to walk through a few of these activities together. Let's say we're going to do this first activity. In order to have students focus on the image and not get distracted by all of this peripheral content in B and C, I might create a solid box by selecting the draw option up here and creating a shape to block the remaining content on screen. So it's as simple as that. Now that you're focused on this image, let's do the activity together. Look at the picture. What are Kyung and his family reading? Now I want you to write your answers in the chat, and I'm going to use another feature here, the text box, to make a record of your responses. Off you go. Okay. All right, I don't think I need to write anymore here because you guys seem to have done a great job. Okay, excellent. Well done, everybody. You're all great students. Now, in a Zoom meeting, you can have your students virtually raise their hand or call out their answers in the same way as you would the traditional classroom too. If you don't use, if you use, you do use the chat box for students to respond, just like in the way we did here in Adobe Connect, you can actually set the chat box feature so that students are able to either see their peers' contributions, or if you want to vet the responses as they come in, you can have students send you a private message. And as you can see here, I used one of the features within Zoom to actually show your responses here on the screen. Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to reveal the next activity by undoing these annotations. And apologies if the colors didn't sync up and it's not coming through as well on your screen at home. Okay, now for this second activity, B, students are being asked to work in groups. Now, this presents a challenge when engaging in online instruction, but with Zoom, you can actually put students in groups using a feature called Breakout Rooms. Now let me show you where that is. If I close my annotation tools, I go back up to the top here, should pop up. I hit more, scroll down to Breakout Rooms. Now because there's nobody else in this room with me, it's not showing any participants, but as you can see, you have the opportunity to group students automatically, or you can do it manually. And this is a really great feature for when you want to put students into specific groups. And what I really like about it personally is that you can close the breakout rooms after a specific amount of time. Then you can all come back to working as a class. Another feature in Zoom that I really like is one that you can use when you're working on completing an exercise together as a class. If I close this and go back up to my tools, they show up. You know, another feature I like is that you can actually allow students to annotate the ebook using the same tools as you. You can pass over the screen share to them. However, if that seems like a logistical nightmare, you can simply elicit the answers from students, much in the same way as I did with you guys, and annotate the screen yourself. Now, these tools might seem somewhat complicated at first, but it's like using any piece of software for the first time. You know, the first few times you use it, it's probably going to be a little tough to navigate. I recommend taking it slow. Use one or two of the features to begin with and get comfortable with them before you start to incorporate more. You know, I'm sure working remotely has posed a challenge for a lot of you. It has been tough for me personally, as you know with my story about the Duplo brick. But this is an opportunity for professional growth. It's a time to develop a new skill set. And once you've used the features a few times, you'll be surprised how quickly you become proficient using them. Okay, so don't let this be too daunting, and play around with it, you know, have fun with it. So we're not done with this page just yet. We're going to walk through this last activity here. And I'm actually going to attempt to open another window here. And look at that. Oops, I should close my tools. And Joy, can you just confirm for me one more time that we're seeing an additional window open now? Okay, wonderful. Thanks for the responses, guys. Okay, so as you can see, exercise C is a listening activity. So in addition to what would be my ebook, I also have the standout teacher companion site with the audio tab open here. Now you can play this audio for students yourself, or you can have them navigate to the audio tab on the student companion site and play it for themselves. You know, one piece of media I would certainly advocate for students playing themselves is the video. Video conferencing platforms typically aren't very good at playing video for participants, or even the host in that for that matter. This isn't specific to Zoom. I've actually found this to be the case for all video conferencing platforms I've ever used. It doesn't matter regardless of your internet connection or your bandwidth capabilities. Video conferencing platforms just aren't at the level we would really expect for video playback at this point. But we have made all of the resources available for students on their side of the companion site, so they can access them there. So let's navigate to the video page here in our students book. We work our way through the unit. And I'll show you how easy it is for students to access the video themselves. So here is our student book video page. And then I can simply go into the correct level, click video, pull up the relevant unit, which is unit 4 in this case. select the video title, and as you can see there, it's as simple as that for students to pull up the video in order to do the activities. So if you are delivering this online, you can take a moment to have the students watch the video, and then you can go through the activities together as a class. So I hope you're able to see how you can use some of these tools within this particular video conferencing platform, Zoom, to mimic the same kinds of instructional practice you may use in the traditional classroom in terms of presenting content for the book and having students collaborate. Now, as far as collaboration is concerned, we've only covered quick interactions, such as students working in pairs or groups, or responding to questions or images as a class. What's really special about Standout is the program's ability to have students collaborate extensively in groups and recycle the language goals of any given unit. We do this through a feature called Team Projects. At the end of each unit of Standout, students are given the opportunity to collaborate on a project related to the theme of the unit. So let's take a look at the team project for this unit. It comes after our video and our review section. So here's our team project for Unit 4 in Standout 2. The project is all about planning a move. Obviously, the unit is about housing, so planning a move is a project related to the theme. And if you look closely, you'll be able to see that students are assigned roles and they work together to create a large piece of work. Now, just because we've moved our instruction online doesn't mean that these large-scale collaborative pieces can't be done. In fact, it presents an opportunity for students to develop their digital literacy skills. Now, because this is a piece of work that usually takes a little longer than most activities to complete, it would probably be quite difficult to do online synchronously. It might be something you have to engage students in asynchronously. So, with that in mind, what tools might you have students use to complete a team project such as this asynchronously? Remember, that's learning not occurring in real time. Pop your answers into the chat box and I'll give you 30 seconds. I'm looking forward to seeing your ideas. Amy, that's a really good suggestion, a shared Google Doc. Breakout rooms, each do a summary. Yeah, a summary would be a good way of tackling the extensive nature of the team project. Oh, great. It looks like, Tanara, you've already been using some of these and you've been using Google Docs for it. That's great to see. Wonderful. Okay, so there's some really interesting ideas here. You'll notice that I've come back to my presentation. I am actually going to stop the screen share on Zoom so we can get rid of that annotation I made and close Zoom. And I'm the only one in the meeting, so I'm going to close it for everybody. Okay, so with those ideas that you were suggesting, can anybody tell me which website this logo belongs to? And it should take you a matter of seconds to throw your responses into the chat box. Yeah, I see a few of them coming in. Yes. Okay, so yes, the logo is from Wikipedia. Now, we're all aware, or at least I hope you're aware of the pitfalls that come with using information from Wikipedia. But Wikipedia could be said to be one of the largest of this type of asynchronous collaboration tools. The clue is in the name. You guys also alluded to it in your responses. It's a wiki. Now, some of you may have worked with the wikis before. They're nothing new. In fact, They've been popular in education since the 2000s. But if you haven't used one before, you might be thinking, what's a wiki? Well, a wiki is a website that can be potentially edited by anyone viewing it or by anyone who has permission to access it. Faribault, the gentleman responsible for this quote, goes on to say that wikis provide a minimal site structure, so students can create a series of web pages and revise their own work and the work of their peers. So in short, a wiki is a website that students can access asynchronously to work collaboratively on projects. Now, there are many wikis out there. There are so many, in fact, with varying levels of complexity. Some are available for purchase, but some of them are also available for free. And what's better is that they have all the features you need to have students complete a project asynchronously. Prior to this meeting, prior to this session, I did a quick search for a free wiki and came across one called Slimwiki. Let me show you what that looks like. Excuse me. Okay, so hopefully you can all see the first page of the wiki from Slimwiki. And once you've created your account and you open your wiki for the first time, there is this incredibly helpful guide that provides all the information you need to get started. And using these instructions, I actually created my own page for the team project that you guys saw. So let me show you where that is. And it's here. So as you can see, I have all of the information that was on the student book page here. And then what I can do, if I scroll down, you'll see that all of the information is here, the assigned roles and all of the activities. And what I can then do is invite users, and I can create teams to work on this project. All I need is an email address for the collaborator, so that would be your students. And then they can access this project. They can break out into teams, and they can work on responding to this activity. Through a collaborative project like this, students are given the opportunity to develop a range of digital literacy skills that they might not have had the opportunity to do so in the traditional classroom. Obviously, they're exploring new ways to collaborate, to participate and create, but they're also developing new ways to research and present information while demonstrating a level of technical proficiency using this new environment. Now, wikis are great for team collaboration, but they can also be really useful if your students don't have a copy of the student's book. As you can imagine, it does take a fair bit of work to make all of this information available for students, but through a wiki, much in the same ways I did for here and for the team project, I can create tasks. Let me show you what one of those looks like. As you can see here, I've created the task from the student's book that we did earlier together. And instead of creating individual teams, you can actually create one large team for your entire class and have students respond here. At this point, a wiki starts to function in a similar way to the discussion boards in an LMS or a VLE, albeit it's a very primitive version of one of those environments. But it allows you to work asynchronously with your students who may not have the materials at home. They're an incredibly overlooked resource that once you become familiar with them, much like the tools in Zoom, can be of great benefit to students who don't readily have access to the materials. Okay, so we have dipped our toe into asynchronous online instruction, but let's take a look at other asynchronous methods to teaching standout online. Let me go back to my presentation here. Okay, excellent. So asynchronous learning and teaching has actually been the most prevalent form of online instruction for a long time because of its flexibility. These environments provide students with all the materials they need through a learning management system, or a VLE, a virtual learning environment, that has either been developed by your institution or commercially purchased. Now, by using an LMS, students aren't necessarily restricted by time. Well, let me rephrase that. Students might have deadlines within an LMS, but self-access tools like this provide students with opportunities for what we could call a delayed response, so that they can use their higher order thinking skills to keep thinking about a problem over an extended period of time. In other words, that spontaneity of the face-to-face interaction, the synchronous interaction, is replaced by what we could call a constructed response. Now, some of you might already be using an LMS, like Canvas or Blackboard, to assign tasks in the student's book, or to link out to other standout components, such as the online workbook. And I'm going to take you over there right now. And I quickly just have to log in here because I have been kicked out. I'm going to expand this a little bit. Okay. So the standout online workbook is available through My ELT. And like the classroom presentation tool, this isn't something I'm going to go into a lot of detail about right now, but there are plenty of webinars in our library that can walk you through how to access and use this resource. One thing I will mention, though, is that the standout online workbook is an invaluable practice tool to help students prepare for the online test environment. This is because in the standout online workbook, we have CASA-style test items in addition to the regular array of test items students might encounter on a computer-based test. So let's take a look at some of these activities together for the unit we've been looking at during this session. I'm going to open my self-study activities. As you can see, I've been completing a few already. I have my units here. Let's go into Unit 4, take a look at the family budget activity. And please excuse the noise outside. One of the pitfalls of working from home is that sometimes you get traffic flying by. Right now, my trash is being collected, so we never know when they're going to come on any given day, so apologies if there is some other noise coming through. But as you can see, we have our regular test items here. We have a matching exercise. I'm not looking at the responses, so I'm probably going to get all of them wrong. We have sentence ordering activities, and we have activities where students have to, these fill in the blank activities, with pieces of realia from the student book. So in this case, students are actually using the verbs that they've learned in the student book and completing these sentences. So that's just a very brief dip into the online workbook. But what I want to do now is actually go back to our companion site. So we touched a little bit on tests and how we include items from standardized tests in our online workbooks. Now, the longer states remain under stay-at-home orders, it may be necessary to start thinking more closely about assessment. Some of you may already be thinking about that. Now, we know this is very important for many of you. So on the Teacher Companion site, you will actually find an assessment tab that will take you to our Exam View Test Center. I'm going to click into that right now. And please give me one moment while it opens. Okay, so in here you will find the Exam View Assessment Suite. Now, you can go ahead and you can install this on your own machine if you are able to do that, and should you want to. However, you'll also find ready-to-go tests with all of the supporting resources, such as answer keys and listening scripts in here. Now, these tests, whether you use the ready-to-go ones or you create them yourself using the software, can then be downloaded and shared with your students. So this is another way to connect asynchronously with your students. So that covers the assessment tool for Standout. But another resource that can be assigned to students asynchronously are those found in the Standout Activity Bank. Now, the activity bank, as you can see here, is also available on the Teacher Companion site, and it comprises a huge number of worksheets. We have multi-level worksheets. We have computer activities, internet activities, and literacy worksheets. All of these worksheets align to the units of the student's book. In fact, the multi-level worksheets align to each lesson, of which there are 5 within a unit. And for most lessons, there are 3 worksheets for the same lesson based on proficiency level. That means that for any level of Standout, there are a minimum of 200 multi-level worksheets. And that's not including the computer activities, the internet activities that were created to help students develop their digital literacy skills or the literacy worksheets. So let me show you an example of that. I'll go into Unit 4, which is the unit we've been working with today. Take a look at Lesson 3. Let's pick a random one. And you can see that just for one lesson within the unit, of which there are 5, we have 3 worksheets, 3 similar worksheets, just with a different level of task based on proficiency level. So you're still able to deliver multi-level instruction asynchronously. Now, even though these worksheets are aligned with the student's book content, it's not necessary for them to be used alongside the student's book. These can quite easily be used independently, instantly providing you with a huge bank of resources to assign to your students. All of these worksheets are in Word format, which means they are fully customizable. Earlier, I mentioned that wikis can be really useful for students who don't have access to the student's book. Well, this is another resource you might want to make use of if you usually use a class set with your students. And this brings me to another point. If you were previously using these worksheets with students in the classroom, you may have printed them out for students to complete by hand. Now you're likely to be assigning them electronically. Because these documents are in Word format, as students start working with them, they might notice that the formatting changes. Instead of this becoming a pain point, I would think of this as an opportunity for students to work on developing the digital literacy skills that come with preparing computer-based documents. You always have the opportunity to convert them to PDF documents yourself so that the content is locked, but I would really use this as an opportunity to help students get familiar with those word processing skills that are in demand within the workplace. In fact, I think you'll be surprised at the amount of incidental learning that might arise through using something like this. Students could even have their own forum within your LMS or your wiki to discuss how to work through these issues together. So those are a few different approaches to how you might teach Standout online asynchronously. But there's one important point I want to make if this is the way you are teaching students exclusively. As I said before, asynchronous online learning has, for the most part, allowed students a large amount of flexibility. They're self-access tools. They can log on at any time to complete their assignments, and they can revisit them as many times as they want. But if this is your sole approach to online learning during the current crisis, it might be necessary to exert a greater amount of control over deadlines for your students, and more importantly, yourselves. I would recommend setting clear timelines, clear deadlines for students to complete their work, and ensure that you make time to provide valuable feedback for students who currently don't have that synchronous interaction, whether it's in the traditional classroom or in a synchronous online learning context. I can't emphasize enough the importance of this channel of communication, especially in the current climate, it's absolutely necessary. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my presentation. And we are going to recap what we have looked at during this brief session. So first, we explored synchronous online instruction by looking at some of the tools that come with Zoom. I mentioned that these tools were particularly useful if you're instructing with the Standout ebook. If you're projecting the classroom presentation tool through a video conferencing platform, you can continue using the features within that program, as they have been specifically designed with the instructor in mind. There's no reason for you to be using the CPT and using the features within Zoom unless you have some quirky way of working with it. We also explored asynchronous online instruction by looking at the benefits of wikis, the Standout Online Workbook, and the resources that we have available on the companion site. I urge you to go onto the companion site and take a look at all of these resources. They are incredibly extensive. For the previous edition of Standout, everything was contained on a CD. We now have everything available on our companion website, which you can all access, and everything is downloadable. And more importantly, you can share those resources with your students when you download them. We talked about how we can maximize student interaction in both synchronous and asynchronous contexts. In synchronous contexts, we can use features like the Breakout Rooms in Zoom, and in asynchronous contexts, we can use tools like wikis or our existing LMSs. Given that both of these approaches are carried out online, students are in no doubt enhancing their digital literacy skills. But we also looked at the resources on the companion site that give students the opportunity to work on specific facets associated with developing these digital competencies. And I think that's really worth keeping in mind. Even though we're all stuck at home right now, as much of an inconvenience as it is, this really gives students the opportunities, especially students using materials in adult education, it gives them the opportunity to develop those digital literacy skills that are so important in the workplace, and to also prepare them for the online test environment. So it's a lot to take in, but that is all I have to talk about today. So if we do want to open it up to questions, we can dedicate some time for that.
Thanks, Lewis. Yes, if you guys want to ask questions in the chat box, Lewis can take those.
And I'm just
Karen,
going to exit out of...
Karen, you are asking about downloadable tests and worksheets that are on our teacher companion site, and if those can be saved somewhere else. Absolutely. Anything that's on our companion site that you can download we understand that that's downloadable, and we know that you will use that for what you wish. So absolutely. Lewis, are you able to see the chat, or should I redo the question?
Yeah, and those pieces, I think it'd be nice if you want to handpick a few out. I can see the chat. Things are coming in quite quickly, but just to that point, I do want to add, everyone's in a different situation in terms of how they can assign these worksheets. But it's as simple as, if you have students' email addresses, you can get these things over to them. So there are a multitude of ways in which we can work with this content.
Roger is asking a great question. Is there any copyright information we need to know about while using Zoom and Standout together? Yes, there is. And as soon as you request those materials from your sales rep to use them over Zoom, they will provide you with a letter from our legal department that will grant you access for a certain amount of time. We are aware that these are very new situations, so yes, we have all of that prepared for you so that you're covered.
Yeah, I want to address a question that came in from Faith, who said that what we really need to teach Standout is the classroom presentation tool. I don't think it is. The classroom presentation tool is a really useful tool if you are delivering standout, if you're instructing with standout synchronously. What it does, it makes things significantly easier, because the step from the traditional classroom to the online environment is smaller than it would be if you have a different way of teaching online. Not much really changes if you're projecting the classroom presentation tool through Zoom. Maybe you need to get familiar with a few of the different features. However, as we've explored, there are so many ways in which you can assign work asynchronously. Sure, it's a little bit more work, but I think you'll find that with all of the resources we have available on the companion site, students can still have even though it's not as interactive, students can still get familiar and learn the content that we have in Standout.
Gregory has a question for you. Any thoughts or suggestions about teaching multi-levels within the Zoom platform?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think the breakout rooms is a great feature if you want to assign students into specific groups. You can always assign the multi-level worksheets ahead of time and then arrange students in those groups. But really, I think it's a matter of getting familiar with not only the benefits of these features, but also testing out their limitations as well, so that you can work best with it. But my immediate go-to would be use the breakout rooms, assign students in groups, and I think you might get some interesting results.
Any other questions, guys? I'll give it one more minute for more questions.
Yeah, I think I'd like to address the question of these low-tech contexts. Some people are asking, what do we do if students don't have a computer at home? The great thing about our companion sites is that they are compatible with students' tablets and students' phones. And I think it goes without saying that almost everyone owns a smartphone, or a very high percentage of people own smartphones. So through accessing the student companion site, students have access to all of the audio, all of the video, just on that phone. They don't necessarily need a computer. And when it comes to wikis as well, I believe students can work through that phone and still collaborate together.
For everyone asking about how to access books, please contact your sales rep. You will be able to speak to them about whether an ebook would be the right solution for you right now, whether a print book, etc. For those of you asking about, is it okay to take pictures and send them? No, that is not legal. So please refrain from doing that. Please speak to your sales rep about legal ways that we can help you to share this content with your students at this time. We do have various ways set up for you to do that right now. So thank you so much. And thank you, Lewis. Thank you for your time. And feel free to email us with any other questions. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. And you will be getting a recording of this in the next few days. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and let me echo that sentiment as well. Thank you guys so much for joining. I hope you're all staying safe, and everyone who you're currently quarantining with, you guys are all getting along. But really, I'd really just like to emphasize again, guys, please use this as an opportunity for professional growth and the opportunity to develop a new skill set. It's really easy to be put off at this new work environment, but really use it as an opportunity to grow. And I think your students, if you're able to convey that, your students will also see the benefits in it too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Everyone.